Hello, beautiful people. One of my subscribers on YouTube asked me to make a video about Omicron, and I said that I would as soon as this household got over Omicron. Because yes, we got it. Everybody got it. It's not uncommon. In fact, it seems as though so many people have it that, is this all a moot point? What are we doing anymore trying to mitigate it? It seems as though the genie is out of the bottle, and here we are. To some people, that is a great thing. To some people, it is not, surprisingly. I feel that there is a certain undercurrent of the population that wanted this to go on forever. And they still do. They're still out there. Real quick, I'll let you know our Omicron story, and you can let me know yours in the bottom, because if you left the house over the past few weeks, you may have gotten it. Vaccinated or unvaccinated, you probably got it. So right before Christmas, we went to a party. My bae was exposed. I'm assuming it was this party. There's really no way to know. He got it. He started showing symptoms on Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. Now, we had a Boxing Day dinner planned. Don't ask. It's all because of Omicron. We usually do Christmas dinner, but this year, 2021, we're doing a Boxing Day dinner. I've made peace with it. I do Christmas big, so it was sort of a, what are we doing Boxing Day? And then the plans got canceled. It doesn't matter. But my bae came down with symptoms. And of course, I knew why this was. It's because he didn't go to his confirmation and God was mad at him. This is what happens. The first time I heard about COVID being some sort of moral failing was from a friend of mine, because I only trust people I know now. We know that the media they got a spin. They got what they want you to think. So it's really hard to trust the media. I now trust people I hear directly from, and then I sort of extrapolate for other people. I ask, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, my friend, fully vaccinated, came down with COVID. This was a few months back. He came down with COVID and he was very open about it on social media. He said that he had nothing to be ashamed of and that this was really happening to vaxxed people too. And I messaged him and I was like, why would you be ashamed of catching an airborne virus? Blue circles, sort of hysteria, let's just say, was forming already at this time, that there was a moral failing with this person if he came down with COVID. So there's a moral failing if he breathed. Okay, fine. I just accept the insanity now. I don't even question it. I just note, okay, that's completely insane. Does it make sense? No. Should I try to make sense of it? No, because my whole day is gone trying to make sense of things. Anyway, bae came down with COVID. We tested him Boxing Day, canceled the dinner. He was symptomatic, so I made him soup and I made him tea. I did not isolate him in the back room like some sort of diseased thing I would be ashamed of. No, I didn't hide him away. We didn't do the N95 masks. He was just in the room, on the couch, watching The Sopranos. That's what we decided to do. I decided I would take the risk. The risk for me is very, very small. Let's be honest. The risk for most of us, I know from my stats on the YouTube, the age range of most of my viewers are very small. So let's keep that in mind. Yada, yada, yada. I took care of him. It wasn't a problem. The funny thing is that my cat started sneezing the next day. So Blackjack also got COVID. I don't know if Blackjack got COVID or he got something else. He started sneezed for a few days. I was very concerned about Blackjack, and I was moderately concerned about Bae too, but Blackjack never bothers anybody. That's why I was so concerned about him. I felt fine the entire time. And then I believe it was the 2nd of January. I figured, okay, I'm going to test, just gonna go out and lead my normal life because the CDC says you can now. Anyway, tested. Turns out I had COVID as well. Cosmo has something to add. Let me put him in the other room. You have nothing to add. You're a cat. Okay, hold for cat. Now, I was asymptomatic. Just for the record, I am not vaccinated. I did the math when they first came out, and I figured that this was not a disease that was a very big risk for me. And I was right. And when I caught it, it wasn't really a problem. Luckily, we had tests because we ordered a bunch about 6 or so months ago. I said, let me take one. I'm going to go out. I don't want to get the guy at the grocery store sick. Didn't know I had it. In fact, I was doing a Sydney Cummings 90-day workout challenge at the point, and I didn't miss any of my workouts. Now, if I felt sluggish, that was because it was over the holiday season and I was eating a lot of cheese and ham. I want to say for me, it was mild. That term mild is kind of being lambasted on Twitter right now because people say, how dare you say this is mild? How dare you say this when people are still in the hospital? We're seeing the entire narrative collapse in real time. Over the summer, it was obvious to the people who were looking very closely that there were a lot of holes in this narrative. It was very hard to find data. Data was being confused. And if you asked too many questions, people said you were a conspiracy theorist, what are you, a Trump supporter, this, and that. And so when we didn't get that data, we're like, what is going on? Who is dying from COVID? Who is dying with COVID? What are the age ranges? What is the comorbidities? What is really the hospital admittance rates, and so forth and so on. And when they're going to the hospital, are they going for serious things? The government officials were talking around it and they weren't saying anything definitive. And when they were saying things that were definitive, when you went to their data, you realized they were talking about a very short amount of time, or they were fudging the stats, talking about most of the deaths were amongst the unvaccinated, and then including a time before the vaccines even came out. It was obvious to people who really looked that there was obfuscation. Anyway, no, both of our tests are negative. We're perfectly fine. No, we do not have any long COVID. This is a thing as well. I don't want to make light of it, but I also don't believe that 1 out of 2 adults is going to get long COVID. I haven't seen it with my eyes. I know a lot of people who have had COVID. Most of the people I know have had COVID, and I haven't seen long COVID. Also, the numbers on long COVID, I mean, let's be honest. Some people are saying the Finnish Department of Health came out yesterday and said 1 in 2 people are going to have long COVID. Whereas this paper out of France that studies 26,000 people who reported long COVID found no link between people who actually had COVID through tests and people who had long COVID. I'm not saying it's all in their head, but look, we have to look at this objectively. Is long COVID a problem? It might be. I am undecided on that. However, let's stop the fear mongering. Also, a good friend of mine who is about my age, my health level, etc., had the same thing. She was vaxxed and boosted. I wasn't. We had the same outcome, that it was incredibly mild. Just throwing this out there, not a humble brag, but we both exercise quite a bit. That's just our lifestyle. That's what we enjoy doing. We know each other from an exercise club. So let's be honest, not everybody has the same fitness calculus when we're talking about COVID. But me and her had the exact same outcome, and I don't have those shots in me. It seems as though those shots are probably not going to be a problem, although I am getting concerned about the boosters and people that I know who are having side effects from the boosters. If you know of anybody who's had side effects from these boosters, let me know in the comments. So now we have Omicron out there. Everybody is getting this version of the virus. Yes, it is more mild, but it's infecting more people. So that's what people criticize when they're online and they say, don't call it mild because I'm having terrible symptoms. They're having flu-like symptoms. Like, we had the flu. People forget we had flus and we had colds before any of this happened. In fact, we had COVID before we locked down. Remember, it got to the United States in November of 2019. It got to LA around that time too. So that was 3 months prior to lockdowns. That was what was going around. What is going on? However you feel about what is going on, I'm sure you have valid reasons for feeling like that. So I'm not here to pick a fight. Some things that I have noticed overall. Most of us just didn't understand other people's values. And I'm seeing this on Twitter. People are saying, I had no idea that the people I knew and loved found that I was disposable or felt that I was disposable. As far as risk goes, there are those of us who say the world is inherently risky. Make yourself as strong as possible because you never know what you have to face. And then there are those of us who say, let's have no risk so that everybody can be comfortable all the time. And we just didn't know that other people felt this way before COVID. It's just in our face now. You probably know from the 9/11 video, I am in the camp that says, hey, this world is a dangerous place. There's nothing you can do except make yourself as healthy as possible. Maybe save a little bit if you can. Put some acorns away for winter, whether those acorns are, food stores, guns, whatever it is that you need to put away for your winter, because you never know when it's going to be coming. And then there are those people who never thought there would be emergency. They're living in a world of perpetual summer. So it's interesting to note. I'm actually fascinated by it. I'm not mad at them. I'm just, wow, you really never thought that something bad might happen in your lifetime? This is because people don't study history enough. Like, bad things happen all the time. I'm very grateful that I never had to live through any of the really bad things. Even 1918 was much worse than this. Not even talking about the 1300s, the plague of the 1300s. Maybe it's because in our parents' lifetime, in the boomers' lifetime, they didn't really have anything this bad. Although the flu of 1968 is nothing to sneeze at. I can't take credit for that. I actually took that pun from Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction because Jonathan Frakes has the best puns, so I can't take credit for that pun. And because we got into the attitude that we would live our whole lives with nothing bad happening, when something just a little bad, just a little inconvenient happened, it nearly destroyed society. Now, I am going through this from the perspective that society was not destroyed, that we are still hanging on. And I am saying that because the internet is still working, the power is still working. And although we do have food shortages and we do have supply chain issues, there is still food in the grocery store. A lot of people say it's over, it's broken. When it's over and it's broken, there will be no YouTube. There's not going to be power. You know what I mean? Like, let's not take it too far. Things can get a lot worse than they are right now. Right now, they're kind of annoying and goofy. Dr. Gator, Dr. Roller Gator, who I'm a huge fan of Dr. Roller Gator, tweeted something interesting. He said, oh no, now we have to unbrainwash people. And that is true. We have to tell people that they're not going to die if they leave their house. How many of you know someone who feels if they go outside, they're going to die? This is one of the best things about Omicron. They went outside, they got it, and they're still around. I'm not speaking for all people. I'm not speaking for all age groups. I'm speaking for the people who mostly watch this channel. They're young, not going to die. There's a lot of the laptop classes. Now, as far as unbrainwashing people goes, that is a major problem because think about this. How many people have gotten unsocialized? Is that a word, unsocialized? Uncivilized over the past 2 years. They don't know how to interact with people anymore because everything's been delivered. They don't know how to talk to other people. They don't know how to say good morning, good afternoon, da 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 da. Now there's not even any of that. And that is actually pretty important. You say that, oh, I don't want to have this small talk anymore. But that small talk is actually telling other people that you want peace, that you care about them, you see them as humans, and that you want to live peacefully with them. So don't knock small talk. Some countries don't do small talk, but because we are the country that we are and, you know, the attitude of our marketplace and so forth and so on, and how that socializes us, small talk is actually kind of important. On this point of this isolation stuff, why didn't lock Bay in the back room and give him his gruel through a hose under the door? Is because COVID is not that dangerous for our age group. Now, there are other people who I know, who I consider near and dear friends, perhaps even family, not mentioning anything. When their family member got COVID, they isolated them. Now, I'm not saying they were wrong to do this, but I'm going to let you know why I didn't do this. I didn't do this because COVID is not the plague. Now, if this were the plague, may I have done that? Yeah. Check out the last podcast on the left's series on the bubonic plague. Because when you're looking at death rates that are that high, we're talking about a third of people, 50% of people, if it's septic plague, if it's pneumonic plague, you're going to 90, 95% of people die from that. Okay, yeah, lock them in the back room. Are you crazy? I don't know the number, the death rate number that is required to lock someone in the back room, but it's a lot higher than the COVID death rate number. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have if it were MERS, if it were the plague. Maybe I would have. That was never a choice for me because it was never that serious. Now we're getting to the point where the CDC is changing its tune. Why are they changing their tune? Is it because a judge ordered all of the Pfizer data to be released within 8 months? Is it because the midterm elections are coming up? Is it because Omicron is sweeping through the population and everyone's gotten it? I don't know the answer to that. All I know is the CDC is completely changing its tune, saying you can go back to work in 5 days unless you test again. So I guess the best thing you can do is not test again. That makes a lot of sense. They're saying that most of the people who died with COVID had 4 or more comorbidities. Now, America has a lot of comorbidities. So let's just throw that out there. We're not a very healthy nation when you get down to the individual citizens, and that is a shame. We've known this for a long time. If you look at the numbers, you say, okay, most of these people had something else that was wrong with them. Now, they still may have technically died from COVID, because they wouldn't have died if they didn't have COVID. But we are also going to see that. We're going to get those numbers soon too. And that's going to be really interesting. So that is a big question mark. We just don't know. So the CDC finally changed its tune. It acknowledged what we all already knew, or anyone who was looking at the data already knew, that comorbidities were associated with this, that most of us were at very low risk from this. And so what starts trending? My disabled life matters. These people were saying, look, I'm disabled. Does my life not also matter? Just because I'm sick, does that mean that I deserve to die? Personally, I distinguish between people who are born disabled or are disabled for a reason that is beyond their control, and people who are disabled due to lifestyle issues. I know that's unpopular to say. We can't judge anybody. And like I said, we don't really judge on this channel. We are all equal in God's eyes. We are not all equal in COVID's eyes. There's only so far you can go before objective reality starts pushing back. Now, this also goes into the body positivity movement. Yes, we should all feel good about our body. And I'm, for the most part, for the body positivity movement. It just went too far. We remember back in the 90s, there was heroin chic. There were models literally dropping dead on the runway. And so body positivity is sort of a reaction to that insane standard that was set by the fashion industry, which they conveniently walked back from when it stopped selling. So recently, the body positivity movement just took it too far. And they were saying things like, no matter what shape you are, you can be healthy. All of your decisions are okay. And that is true. God does not judge. God loves everybody equally. However, COVID judges. COVID doesn't attack everybody equally. If you have 4 or more COVID morbidities, COVID's coming for you. If you are obese, COVID's coming for you. Now, most Americans are overweight or obese. I am not exaggerating. Most Americans are overweight or obese. So this should really be a wake-up call for everybody in this country that it really matters if you are healthy. There are situations where you have to be healthy. It's going to be too late to get healthy when you're already sick, when you're already having the heart attack, when you're already having whatever diabetes. You can actually bring it back from diabetes, but especially with COVID. With COVID, it was too late to get healthy when you're on the hospital bed on a ventilator. It's already too late. So respect to the body positivity movement for everything that it's done to help people, but we are seeing it all come to a head. The body positivity movement does not work in this situation. Now, another thing which is very interesting is that people are calling the CDC eugenicists. They're saying that it's a dog whistle for eugenics. Eugenics is selective breeding for specific traits. So the Nazis, they were eugenicists. We had a lot of eugenicists in the United States before then too. In fact, you could say that it kind of popped off here, but we're not going to go into that right now. I have to push back on this because allowing COVID to run its course is not eugenics. It attacks older people more so, past breeding age. So by the technical definition of eugenics, this is not eugenics. You could say, well, nature is eugenicist then. Maybe you could say that, but we're not in a position we're going to go to war with nature. It's just not happening. Also, I remember plenty of people calling for Darwinism against the unvaxxed, hoping that the unvaxxed would suffer and die because they didn't get the vaccine. So now, I'm not saying it's the same people, but we do see a sort of switch in that little narrative, that little talking point right there. One of the major arguments for people who want lockdowns to resume is that we can't trade lives for the sake of the economy, that the economy is not as important as individual lives. And there's truth to this. However, let us acknowledge that the United States is an economy. Our God is the dollar. And this is not, I'm not going to throw judgment on this, whether this is good or bad, because this does come in handy sometimes. As long as your money is green, people will serve you. Now, people don't use money anymore. Okay, whatever. But the point is, it's always been an equalizing force. Being able to participate in the economy has always been an equalizing force so that people who were able to get resources, I'm not saying the economy is always fair either, but people who are able to play the game and get resources then get a seat at the table. So to shut down the economy is to shut down all the seats, especially for the young. For people my age, for people younger, for people also a little older, it says, okay, you're in the stage of your life where you have to earn so that you really get a say. Not a vote, we all get a vote, but like a real say so that we're property owners, so that we have established ourselves. And so when you shut down the economy, you are shutting that down for young people and saying, well, just listen to your parents. Why are we listening to our parents? They've kind of messed things up. Finally, we have to acknowledge that a lot of politicians have staked their entire reputation on this COVID fight. Now, it was cool when it was under Trump because they were already fighting Trump constantly. But post-Trump, what are we doing here? Now, Cuomo did it. He's out. Newsom did it. I don't know what's going to happen with Newsom. Macron in France, Trudeau. And as Matthias Desmond warns, is that when the mob realizes that they've been had, they're going to turn on their leaders. And who are their leaders? So I get that why these politicians are holding fast to this. I get why these politicians don't want to say that they made a mistake, because once they do, the mob will turn on them. Yes, it will. They will be hung up from the lamppost, figuratively. Do not hang anyone up from a lamppost, please. Please. Pretty please don't hang anyone up from a lamppost. You can't say, because I said pretty please. You really can't. Once someone says pretty please, I might as well have made you pinky swear. But yeah, the mob will turn on its leaders. And when that happens, it's not good for the leaders because they've led them astray. So we see this is why the politicians, in my opinion, don't want to let this go, because they've staked their entire reputations on it. A lot of people have made a career off of COVID hysteria and fear mongering, et cetera, et cetera. So for this to stop right now, well, then what do they have? What do they have to offer? Now, this isn't just COVID. People make careers on things and then they kind of put themselves in that niche because their customer base or their followers, they want to hear that from them. And so this person can't just say, oh, I was wrong. They will lose everything that they've worked for. So I get it. I'm sympathetic. I'm not sympathetic. I understand. Am I sympathetic? I'm understanding. Is that the same thing as being sympathetic? I don't know. Let's ask the empaths. Anyway, I get why these politicians are holding strong to this, because if they said I made a mistake and I was wrong, well then what are you talking about? You were wrong. So kids miss school because you were wrong. All of these children were injected with this experimental, someone said mystery juice. Mystery juice. Oh my God. I'm going to find that meme. All of these children were injected with this experimental mystery juice, and you were wrong. You didn't know. I get the temptation to string them up by a lamppost, but we agreed we wouldn't do that. We said we wouldn't do that, so we're not going to do that. But I see why they really have to dig their heels in and say COVID is the biggest threat to humanity ever. 1 in 2 people are going to develop long COVID, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I see where they're coming from, but look, the genie's out of the bottle. Everybody has Omicron. Most of us were fine. If you are not fine, you're not watching this video right now. Isn't that the way life goes? It goes on. Those of us who make it, most of us will have made it from this. Honestly, look at the numbers. The vast majority survived, and we're going to build a life in the future. Yes, it's going to be a little bit different than the life in the past, but we have to move on. We should have moved on many, many months ago, but what are we going to do? Go back in time and fix it? There's no going back in time. That's another one of those rules. There's no going back in time. We move forward starting today, and we move on. And I'm so sorry for those people who didn't make it. I'm so sorry for the people who lost family members, et cetera, et cetera. I'm very sorry for you. I just think it's funny because in 20 years, we're going to look back at this time. We're going to have a lot more information by then. We're going to have a lot more information. But there's going to be 2 camps. And one camp will believe that 2021, 2022 was the year that our reptilian overlords tried to implement a social control program. And the other people, this is probably what's going to be in the history books too. I'm not going to say for certain, but this is likely what's going to be in the history books, in my humble opinion. They're going to say 2021, 2022 is the year where COVID finally came to a head and it was a deadly virus, but we survived it. I know which grandpa I want to listen to. It's going to be this grandpa, because this grandpa's fun and he drinks old granddad and he's got a lot of stories. And this grandpa probably has a good savings and, this grandpa probably is very loving as well. I'm not going to say this grandpa's bad, but this grandpa's way more interesting. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Yes, we are feeling much better. I hope you are feeling better as well. And yeah, we go on. Subscribe.